Stop scrolling, because what began as a quiet whisper has now erupted into a full-blown internet firestorm. At the center of it all is one sentence, short, sharp, and impossible to ignore. You're not his type. Just 6 words. No emojis. No questioning. No soft delivery. But when those words were allegedly spoken by Aaron Pierre's ex, and aimed directly at Teyana Taylor, everything shifted overnight. What might have otherwise been dismissed as petty commentary instantly became a warning that split the internet straight down the middle. Some people called it bitterness. Others called it bravery. And a growing number of fans began asking an uncomfortable question out loud. What if she was telling the truth? What made this situation even more unsettling was how quietly it surfaced. There was no press release, no explosive interview, no headline-grabbing statement. Instead, it emerged the way real internet drama often does, through whispers, reposts, screenshots, and speculation passed from one timeline to another. One moment, fans were celebrating Teyana's apparent new chapter. She looked radiant, relaxed, lighter. After everything she had endured publicly, people were rooting for her happiness. The next moment, timelines were flooded with that same sentence, repeated again and again, growing heavier each time it appeared. You're not his type. People paused. They reread it. They tried to unpack it. Was it about appearance, personality, lifestyle, fame? Or was it pointing towards something deeper? Something people weren't ready to confront? To understand why those words shook so many people, you have to understand the image Aaron Pierre has cultivated over time. On the surface, he comes across as calm, introspective, artistic, and reserved. He doesn't overshare. He doesn't chase controversy. He rarely feeds into gossip culture. In an era where celebrity men often reveal their flaws loudly and publicly, Aaron's quiet demeanor felt refreshing to many. Safe even. That quiet confidence earned him trust. But the alleged warning from his ex cracked that image just enough to make people stop looking forward and start looking backward. Once fans started digging, they didn't stop. Old interviews resurfaced. Archived photos began circulating again. Past connections were placed side by side. Slowly, patterns that once went unnoticed started to feel more visible. Women Aaron had allegedly been linked to before appeared to share similar aesthetics, backgrounds, and energies. And then there was Teyana, bold, expressive, emotionally open. A mother. A woman who has lived much of her life under public scrutiny and survived it. To some fans, she stood out in a way that felt refreshing and intentional. To others, she stood out in a way that felt temporary. That's when curiosity turned into concern. Because the phrase, not his type, is rarely just about attraction. More often, it's about comfort, control, familiarity. It's about what someone knows how to handle, and what they don't. According to online chatter, the ex didn't just drop the warning once. She allegedly doubled down, hinting that she knew more than she was willing to say publicly. That combination, a warning followed by silence, made the message louder than any detailed explanation ever could. It felt like someone saying, "I've seen this before." Soon after, speculation took a turn many people didn't want to acknowledge at first. The idea that maybe Aaron's relationship with Teyana wasn't built on the foundation fans hoped it was. That perhaps it benefited his visibility, his access, his presence in spaces he hadn't occupied so prominently before. Whether fair or not, his name began trending everywhere. Blog, comment sections, YouTube thumbnails. Being associated with Teyana Taylor carries weight. She doesn't just date quietly, she brings conversation, attention, and relevance. Once that idea took hold, it became difficult for fans to unsee it. Meanwhile, Teyana remained noticeably quiet. No long captions. No defensive posts. No public explanations. Instead, there were subtle shifts. A different tone. Cryptic visuals. Less warmth. More distance. Longtime followers know that Teyana's silence is rarely empty. When she goes quiet, it usually means she's processing something deeply personal. And that silence made people uneasy, because in moments like this, silence often suggests someone is listening rather than reacting. Then the comparisons began. Whether fair or not, Iman Shumpert's name re-entered the conversation. Not because people wanted a reunion, but because of what he represented. A man who knew Teyana's history, her wounds, her world. Fans started asking whether Aaron was truly prepared to be with someone whose life carried that level of emotional depth and responsibility. Was he ready for that gravity? Or was he more comfortable in quieter, lighter spaces where expectations were lower and emotions were easier to manage? As the days passed, the alleged warning refused to fade. Reaction videos multiplied. Comment sections turned into debate forums. Some women dismissed the ex as jealous. Others said she was looking out for Teyana. And many admitted something painfully familiar. They had ignored warnings like that before too. That familiarity is what made this hit so hard. The tone shifted again when fans noticed subtle changes among people close to Teyana. Allegedly, a few members of her inner circle began posting messages about knowing your worth and not overlooking red flags. No names were mentioned. No accusations were made. But the timing spoke volumes. It was one of those moments where silence carried more meaning than any direct statement ever could. Around the same time, quiet rumors began circulating. Whispers of tension. Of conversations happening away from cameras. Of questions being asked behind closed doors. According to speculation, Teyana was allegedly reassessing things. Asking questions she hadn't needed to ask before. Still, nothing was confirmed. Nothing was denied either. That uncertainty became the heaviest part of the story. There were no leaked messages. No explosive interviews. Just fragments. Half-stories. Enough information to make people pause and reconsider moments that once seemed harmless. Old interviews were rewatched with new eyes. Casual interactions were reinterpreted in hindsight. The energy had shifted, even if no one could pinpoint exactly when. But what truly made people hold their breath was what didn't happen next. Aaron didn't issue a strong public denial. There was no statement dismissing the talk as false or unfair. No clarificación. Just silence. And while silence can sometimes reflect maturity, it can also leave space for doubt to grow. In situations like this, quiet doesn't always bring peace. It creates room for speculation. Whether intentional or not, that absence of clarity allowed the narrative to take on a life of its own. Supporters were left conflicted, unsure what to believe or who to trust. And in that stillness, unanswered questions felt heavier than any confirmed truth ever could. Sometimes, what isn't said changes everything. Fans began wondering whether addressing the rumors would require explanations Aaron wasn't ready to give, or truths he couldn't deny. By then, the conversation had evolved beyond gossip. This became about patterns. About whether strong women are admired or merely tolerated. About whether Teyana, after everything she's endured, was once again being placed in a situation where she might feel pressured to dim herself to fit someone else's comfort zone. That realization shifted public reaction from curiosity to protectiveness. Because regardless of how anyone feels about Aaron Pierre, one thing remains undeniable. Teyana Taylor has already carried her share of heartbreak. The most unsettling part of this situation isn't the warning itself. It's the possibility that it came too late. Too late to prevent feelings from forming. Too late to avoid emotional investment. Too late to stop the realization that she may have stepped into something temporary. That's where the discomfort truly settles. Fans began asking the question no one wants to voice aloud. What if Teyana was never meant to be the endgame? Only a chapter? A moment in time rather than a lasting place in his life? That thought alone was enough to unsettle even the most optimistic supporters. And yet, despite all the speculation, nothing has been officially confirmed. No breakup announcement. No dramatic posts. No emotional declarations. Just distance. Just unanswered questions. In many ways, that uncertainty feels heavier than a clean ending ever could. Because without clarity, hope and heartbreak exist side by side. People hold on to the idea that everything might be fine while quietly bracing themselves for the possibility that it isn't. Now the internet is watching closely. Every post is analyzed. Every appearance is questioned. Every silence feels intentional. People are still trying to decide whether that warning came from jealousy or insight, from bitterness or experience, whether it was meant to hurt Teyana or protect her. And that's where this story pauses. Not with answers, but with a question. If someone who once knew him closely said, "You're not his type," was it a warning ignored or a truth revealed? One thing is certain, this story isn't over yet.